This is really about being free to create what you want your life to look like. We each are our own hero. And how do we take the challenges that come our way and see those as the birth process of us becoming heroic? Can you meet that judgment that ultimately will surface with neutrality?
This is the Wall Street Coach Podcast with Kim and Curtin.
Aloha, everybody. I'm so glad to see we already have some people coming to the space. Thank you for being here. My name is Kim Ann Curtin. I am the Wall Street Coach. I have the only trading Discord room dedicated to mindset for traders called TraderHeroJourney.com. I also host a podcast, and I guide a select group of traders one-on-one how to secure success faster and with less pain. Today, I'm very excited to have Andrew Aziz, the founder of Bear Bull Traders, on my Twitter space. Andrew has come to my podcast a couple of months ago. We had a great conversation, two-part video podcast and then Twitter space. But today, I wanted to have this Twitter space specifically because of Andrew having just summited Mount Everest, which was a dream of his for a while. And I just find the harrowing journey that entails to be fascinating. And I suspect he is going to have lots of analogies and metaphors that can be relatable to traders. So my hope is that this conversation will inspire you personally, but also professionally, and that we can all learn from what happened for him up on that mountain. I'm not sure if any of you were able to read his, small recap that he spoke to in some of his social media the day he did summit Everest, but it was pretty moving and emotional. So my hope is that today you'll get to hear more, as well as I'll get to hear more because I'm dying to hear the story. Andrew, I'm so glad you're here. I'm sending you the permission to be a co-host, and hopefully that will work.
Hello, Kim. How are you?
I'm doing well, Andrew. How are you doing?
I am good. Thank you so much for having me. How's the beautiful weather in Hawaii?
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. We have summer coming, we've had a very rainy, cold, damp, couple of months. So I know everybody's like, hey, Kim, don't complain. You're in Hawaii. But it's been very wet, Andrew. So I'm happy to see the drier weather come in. So it is a rainforest in a lot of ways. So it gets wet after a while.
Oh, it's amazing. I can't wait to come and visit you there.
I know you're going to have to come, especially to just relax and take some time to just chill after all of the harrowing adventures you've recently had. So I think it's a good time to come to Hawaii and just sit back and on the beach and relax.
Yeah, definitely. Well, after that, I actually went to Bali. So I spent some time in Bali. And then after that, I went to Dubai. So, I really needed some beach and relaxation time, and I really got that. So, good. But definitely Hawaii, I'll come for a visit.
Okay, good. That sounds perfect. Glad to see you here too, Paris. I'm glad you're here, and I'm sure you're going to have some questions for Andrew. So, Andrew, I just spoke a little bit to why I wanted to do this space. I mentioned, of course, that you were recently on my podcast, and we had a great conversation a few months ago, but that I was myself personally fascinated with the summiting of Everest that you did, and that I was certain this would be an inspirational call, but perhaps also inspiring to traders to just see where the correlations around the mindset. I'm so fascinated with the mindset that everybody, uses in the markets. So I thought it would just be a great conversation to just see what you walked away from for yourself as a person, as a man, but also as a trader.
Yeah, that's very nice of you. Thank you so much for really having me. For those of you who don't know me, I've been climbing mountains since pretty much my teenage life. I grew up in Tehran, in Iran, and there are some big mountains nearby. And from my bedroom, I always look at the mountains, look at the snow, and look at the those beautiful environment. And I always had the passion of going into the mountains. And mountains, climbing mountains and hiking, I started with very simple hiking. And, when I got into, university, I got a little bit more technical climbing, including ropes. And when I came to Canada, obviously more glacier travel and crossing more difficult trains in the mountain. And, eventually my dream was to go to the Everest, not just because it's the highest point in the world, just because that environment, I wanted to environment like something like about 27,000 feet. And, I know it's beautiful. The sunrise, I really wanted to look at the sunrise in that environment. And, I went to Nepal for, to hike around and climb around Everest in 2015, April and May 2015. And that was exactly the time that the very big earthquake happened in Nepal. And I happened to be there. Actually, yeah. So, it was a very interesting experience. Obviously, nobody climbed it after the big, earthquake, which 40,000 people unfortunately died. But it was a very interesting experience because, you got to see, a very poor country in a disaster and, coming out of that environment, it was very interesting. But I always had in mind to go back to Nepal for climbing a big mountain. I went to Nepal in 2021 for some running and hiking and trekking. And I finally decided to do it this year because I thought that this is the time that I got to do. I think I'm at the peak of my health. And it would be the best time to climb Everest. The whole expedition, usually the people that climb Everest during the April and May. So climbers are going, it's a very long expedition, usually it's about 6 weeks to 8 weeks. So I went there, I did it in 1 month, did it really fast because I've had experiences in the high elevation before. And just 2 weeks before I go to Nepal, I went to Bolivia to climb some big mountains, again over 23,000 feet, so it took some sort of acclimatization. So I went there around mid-April, April 20th, and most of the climbers are going around mid-April, early April, and they try to, for the summit push, which is the most stable weather, is around 2nd and 3rd week of May. So most of the people who climb Everest, they try to aim for the summit push in that time, depending on the window. And I personally summited on May 18 at 5 a.m. in the morning. And so I came down the same day. For climbing something like 26,000, Everest is 29,000 feet, like 8,800 meters. It's a long process. And obviously the number one thing that you take away from this process is you have to be very patient with yourself, with your body, with the weather, and see if the mountain really allows you to climb. That's the number one thing that, you really have to learn from the process.
One of the things I noticed you spoke about when you were trying to give us a little recap was how you kept experiencing delays at being able to go to that summit because the rope was torn. So I'm just curious, what was your mindset like? Here you are, as close as you could possibly be, and yet it was kind of eluding you. What was that like for you?
I mean, going back to the patience that I mentioned, that, the Everest is a challenge that, I kind of resembles with trading. Like a lot of people are mentioning that to me, that I want to be a trader. I have this amount of money. I'm looking to do this, and you do this and this. And I'm always telling them that you cannot really make a shortcut out of trading. You have to really go through the process and be patient with the process. The climbing Everest is also like that. Like no other mountains I've ever been in my life, that you just have to wait. There's no way to go up in the mountain. The wind and the cold and the lack of oxygen has no mercy and joke with you. Even the strongest climbers, they just have to wait until to get to the right timing. So the most important part in climbing a big mountain like that is to be patient and accept that there are things that are out of your control. No matter how strong you are, no matter how excited you are, no matter how prepared you are, it's just you have to be patient for the right moment. And that was very difficult for me, especially that I'm a very impatient person. I'm someone that I really want to get things done. Even in my trading, I'm a scalper. I just want to get things done. Like I can't, wait for days and weeks and hours. I just need to finish it. And it was difficult for me on that front.
Yeah. The other thing that really stood out to me was how you were only 10 minutes away from the summit, but that you were encountering, very tragically, that 19-year-old young man who had died, and other bodies, I presume, as well, that were up there, and that, shook you to consider turning back. I'm wondering if you'd be open to talking about that. And if you don't feel comfortable, that's okay too, Andrew.
No, 100%, definitely. I mean, above 26,000 feet, you start seeing actually bodies, dead bodies, more than one. You can. I personally saw 4 or 5, but there are more. Usually, if they're on the way, the other climbers push them down the mountains a little bit. So because there's not a lot of space to go up the mountain. The one that I saw, it was so fresh. Like the headlamp that he used, he died probably at 5 hours before us or 10 hours before us, from exhaustion, and most of the deaths are based on from exhaustion and lack of oxygen. So his headlamp was still on, and the moment that I saw, we were just 10 minutes from the summit. I told myself that I'm not ready to die for a mountain. It's just not worth it. The risk to reward is not there. I turned back to my Sherpa, and you don't talk in that environment because you have an oxygen mask and the wind and everything. And I asked him to go back, and then he looked at me and he looked at the summit and said, "Just 10 minutes. What are you talking about?" Just he pushed me toward there and told me that don't look at it, just go, keep pushing, looking, going forward. And that was Kim. This is the most important part of I think my life so far. After I decided to move, going up back to the summit, I accepted that I'm gonna die in this mountain. And the moment that, I've heard that before, I've read that somewhere before, that the key to climb Everest is that you have to be willing, accept to die for it. That's the only way that you can climb it. I didn't understand it that time. Like, what are you talking about? Obviously, there's a risk, but we take care of ourselves. We use rope and then we go,
Yeah.
But, the moment that I saw that dead body, I said, okay, I'm going. I accept that, okay, this is it. That was my life journey. And let's go and see where I'm actually dying. And that's okay. The death is not that bad. In that environment, when you die, it's like a sleeping because, it's just your lack of oxygen. It makes you really sleepy. And then I say, okay, it's like falling asleep and not waking up. It's not a painful death. And I just keep moving up. And as you go up, you're more and more scared because you know that you have to come down. Most of the deaths are actually happening on the way down, not on the way up. So we reached to the summit. Obviously you have that endorphin of success and you got, the pictures and, I was really happy enjoying the environment, but coming down, I knew that I have to pass those dead bodies and, those are the areas that the people have died. But I think the key for me was accepting the fact that, okay, this is it. That is my fate. And that helped me a lot.
That's really beautiful. And I can't help but see, just that is the same metaphor of which life is, right? You can't really live until you accept that death comes with this life that we are all fortunate enough to live with. And it just feels like a philosophical mind shift, perhaps, that willingness.
That is very true. And Kim, I experienced the true, real, in-depth mindfulness up there. Like, I'm not doing meditation. I know about mindfulness and being in the present, but I'm not a person who my mind always works either in the past or in the future. I'm always regretting my past or have the anxiety about the future. It's just in my nature. And everybody's telling me that you have to live in the moment and focus on be mindful. But up there in the mountains, especially in the last 10 hours of pushing toward the summit, the only thing that you can think of is every step that you're making. Because of the lack of oxygen, you just have to give one step and you have to deep breath a couple of times and then another one and another one. And your mind doesn't have any energy to go up about, what if I go up there and take pictures? Or on the other way, you don't think about anything else, like for hours and hours, pure mindfulness. And it's actually a very, very nice state of mind. And
Hell yeah.
This is this is something that you get it by meditation.
Yeah, you're in the now. That environment forced you to be in the only thing that's true and real, which is now. There is no past, there is no future in ever, but especially in that environment. It's profound, Andrew. It's profound.
It's amazing. And here's another thing is that you actually find your true self, because our mind is always going through either anger or, happiness or laugh or talking to each other or notifications and stuff. So our minds are always moving towards something. And in the true state of meditation, you sit down and then you observe all the thoughts that are coming and going in your mind. And a lot of people say, okay, who is real you? I mean, who is Andrew Aziz? Is it the happy Andrew or is it angry Andrew or, the depressed Andrew? Which one is that? No, the one that is observing all of those thoughts, that is the real person, like real
Beautiful.
Yourself. Yeah, so in that environment, I think for 8 hours I was myself. I wasn't capable of thinking anything else, and my mind was really connected to my body, and I was feeling that it's actually through me. And that is really in the zone. I mean, if you can, during your day-to-day city life, be in that state of mind, I think that is really the true enlightenment that Buddha is really talking about. Like, because I was there with, there are Nepalis and they're Buddhists, and I was talking and reading a lot about Buddhism. And essentially that state of enlightenment that the Buddha is talking about is really that. It's just be truly in the moment without any past or future, any anger or hate or nothing. It's just sitting in the moment. And it's a very beautiful feeling.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. We're talking to the founder of Bearable Traders, Andrew Aziz, who is an incredible mountaineer for many years. And he just was able to, as you can hear in his story, got to the top of Mount Everest, a dream of his that he's had for a long time. Please follow him on Twitter and check out his website, Bearable Traders. My name is Kim Ann Curtin, the Wall Street Coach. I have the only trading Discord room dedicated to mindset called TraderHeroJourney.com. If you're enjoying this conversation, please tweet it out so we can have others hear all that Andrew experienced. And I'm curious too, Andrew, about how this correlates to what you do professionally as a trader. But I do want to open up the floor to questions. So please, I'm going to pause for a second. If anybody does have any questions they want to ask Andrew, please raise your hands and I'll give you the microphone. One of the things that I wanted to also ask you, Andrew, was what were there barriers, mindset barriers, and or physical barriers that you did have to overcome for you to just be able to navigate this?
I personally didn't have any physical barrier, really. I mean, it's all mental. Like the moment that you are up there and you feel that you're exhausted and you cannot go up anymore, it's all mental. Later, when I came down, all the Sherpas and the people who were in the expedition, they told me that I was the fastest person who started from Camp 4 going up and coming back down to Camp 2. Like I did it in less than 15 hours.
Wow. What do you attribute that to, Andrew?
I don't know. I mean, physically, I probably just stay very general health, just healthy generally, and try to, eat healthy and try to do exercise and run. Physically, a lot of people asking me, how do you get yourself physically ready for Everest? You can't really. You just have to have your general fitness, but in that environment, you just have to go and adapt to the acclimatize by the elevation, go a couple of weeks in advance and just be ready. You can't really do much physically, but mentally, I think I mentally broke down when I saw the dead body. And, when you see the dead bodies, you know that they're all probably as good as you or maybe better climber than you. So you mentally break down. You think that you cannot do that. And I found it in life generally, it's, it's the mental aspect of it. In trading, for example, it's very mental. The decisions that you're making, and sometimes it's wrong, but you're still doing it. Those are all the aspects of mental strength and mental resilience. For me, physically, no problem. Mentally, again, having that Sherpa was also very important. Every time that I was really afraid, and I wanted to cry, looking at him and see this guy was older than me and carrying actually more oxygen than me. He was carrying 4 bottles of oxygen for both of us. So I was looking at him and he was going and he was older than me. And I said, okay, I probably can do that. This guy is doing. And then a couple of times that I, sat down and looked at the summit, and especially that time next to the dead body, he pushed me and said, "Go." Having that the Sherpa, an experienced person who's been up there 12 times, actually helped a lot. That's another thing that actually I think it's very similar to trading, is that being around someone who's more experienced takes you accountable, make you accountable, and support you is very important. Remember,
and
up there, the
encourages you
Sherpas
and encourages you.
exactly encourages you. Like that Sherpa cannot do anything for me up there. Like that dead body that I mentioned, he had a Sherpa as well, but he just passed out, and the Sherpa cannot do anything. Like they can't even bring you down. Like they are there to support your journey, to be present with you, but they're not there to save you. And it's very, very important. I was thinking, oh yeah, if I feel bad, I'll just these guys take care of him. But no, even that Sherpa was struggling himself with the lack of oxygen, with cold and everything. But having someone experience with me actually makes me feel stronger in my journey. Like, okay, this guy is there. I'm going with this guy. This guy is not taking me up there. I'm going with this guy. And it's very important. For me, actually, he saved my life a couple of times because my oxygen mask froze. And this oxygen mask, you breathe through that. And if the valve freezes, then, you might have some issues. My valve froze. And then I realized that even though I have oxygen in there, I can't breathe. And I suddenly pushed him and I said, well, I can't breathe. And then he knew that he was a very experienced Sherpa. He knew that it's frozen. So he took out his mask and started hawing and puffing in with his mouth into my mask. So opened up, and that was a great thing. But having an experienced person next to you is extremely important to encourage you, inspires you, and just walk with you up there.
Yeah, I can't help but think that is how you operate with so many, of your colleagues and the students that come into your room. I was fortunate enough to speak at one of your conferences, and all of your talks and all of your engagement with your students is one of pushing them beyond what's comfortable, encouraging them, speaking hard truths, and making sure that kind of no one gets left behind. So I'm just very happy that you received that same experience on that mountain, Andrew.
Very important. I mean, in every aspect of life, I've always heard about life coaches, like the people who are life coach. And, I was always wondering, what can they do really for you? A lot of these, especially for successful businessmen and entrepreneurs and that, just life coaches they're not necessarily as rich as those guys or as successful as those guys, but they are there to support you through your decision making in your journey. And in trading, for example, in our community, the people who are coming, they're trading with us, we always tell them that, hey, you're not here to copy us or do what we do, but we are here to support you. If you have any question, just being around a group of successful people helps you a lot. Yeah. Dr. Brett Steenbarger is a famous psychologist, author, is one of my very respected author that I really look up to. He mentioned that, if you want to become an Olympic swimmer, going to Olympic, to compete, do you have a better chance to do it alone in your backyard pool or join a club and swim with a bunch of people who are actually pursuing the same goal? Obviously, you have a better chance than you are with a group of people, even if they're a direct competitor of you. So in trading, all traders are essentially somehow the competitors of each other. We are, trading all same things, sometimes taking money from each other, but being around each other, even though we are direct competitor of each other, actually helps a lot to achieving that peak going up.
Yeah, it raises the bar for everyone. Paris, you've been so patient with your questions. Sorry for the delay. Please, what is your question for Andrew? And it's good to have you here, Paris.
No, thank you, and thanks, Kim. And Andrew, I've known you personally. I've known you for many years. Your journey in trading as well as mountaineering has been very inspiring. Sometimes you do things which are so unimaginable, and you make sure that you achieve it and make it imaginable. So thank you for that. My question to you is, when we talk about in terms of trading or compare it with mountaineering, we talk about risk reward. And sometimes I want to understand more about your mindset on what was trying to climb the Mount Everest, and the risk was a very high risk of dying while climbing to the Mount Everest. And what was the reward that you were thinking to achieve? Because sometimes you are passionate about so much that it may lead to an obsession. So, how did you differentiate between your passion and if it was an obsession to climb that? And what was the risk reward that you were thinking? Because for a lot of people, or maybe a lot of people listening to it, that it could be, something that's very high end. And would you be willing to risk dying on the mountains than thinking of climbing one? So, what was your mindset behind that?
It was a bad trade, Paris. It was a very bad risk to reward in the climbing Everest. I was afraid, like the moment that I wanted to come back, because I realized that like, it's not worth it. I don't want to die for a mountain. It's just not worth it. And I don't want to go back, to be honest with you, and that high elevations ever again. Like I don't want, I don't understand people who are not professionally or guides, but they keep going up. And that's a very hard environment. It's like end of the world. It's literally end of the world. Like in the morning when everybody was waking up at Camp 4 trying to put the oxygen on and gear on and everything, I was looking at people's face and everybody had fear in their face, like including the Sherpas. Like they're like, you've seen these movies like Germany, World War II, like they're going to war. It was exactly like that environment. So for me personally, the risk that I was taking, I wasn't aware of the risk until you really get into the 10 minutes to 20 minutes to the summit. And I realized that it's not worth it. It was very risky, but the reward for me personally, because I really didn't want to climb Everest that much for it. Like I didn't want to die for it. I didn't have a project for it. The only thing that I thought about that is amazing is I knew a lot of people are following me in the community, and I wanted to do that for them because Kim and Paris, I don't know if you guys know, I was overweight like 7 years ago. I was very bad health. My dad was overweight. He died very early, heart problems, and I came from a family of nothing, really, from zero money. And I thought that if I can climb Everest, I can show people that you can make changes in your life. I came from Iran, from a country that I had to immigrate very difficultly to Canada. I borrowed money to come to Canada, and I did a PhD in Canada. And then I started a business, and I did the trading, and I became successful financially. And now I'm climbing Everest. If I can inspire one person to do that, I think I would be happy. And to be honest with you, in the expedition, in the first climatization that we did go up and I didn't have internet, but I came down, I got so many emails and messages and texts and even DMs in the Twitter that it inspired me, that people say, Andrew, go, you can do it, you're inspiring. And that actually pushed me going higher. But overall, for majority of the people, this is something that I don't recommend. And I personally don't want to go back again in that environment.
Yeah, Paris, did you have a follow-up?
No, that's it. Thank you. You haven't inspired one. You have inspired thousands of people, Andrew. So, including me. So, thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless you, brother.
Such a beautiful question, Paris. It was just so deep. Please, if you guys have questions, please feel free to raise your hand so I can give you the microphone. I'm just kind of curious, Andrew, what life is like on the other side of this tremendous accomplishment. For some people, sometimes there's a bit of like, a little bit of wind coming out of our sails when we achieve something that we've wanted for so long. I hope that's not the experience for you, but I'm just curious, like, how do you go back to normal after such an incredible achievement?
You have to define another, objective for yourself. I thought about this a lot, Kim. A lot of people are asking me what is next. Obviously, that is Everest. I mean, there's nothing more than that you want to achieve. I was thinking of what am I going to do as something that challenges my soul. I was thinking of now focusing and on the business a little bit on the side, not because of the money, because one of the things that I actually took out of this expedition was that how life is fragile and how short it can be. Like I told you that a young person died in front of me. So money actually, lost a lot of its value in my mind because I came from a family of nothing, and money is very important for me to make money to get rich. And then, you realize that, okay, you're just one step away, one regulator malfunction away from death, or one, mistake from dying in the mountains. The money doesn't have that much value for me. But now the challenge that I put for myself is, we're building this trading terminal for traders. And I was thinking of, okay, can that be my next Everest? Can that project be my next Everest? In terms of a personal goal, I was thinking of maybe going to Antarctica. That's like climbing mountains there are two mountains in Antarctica that I want to see. It's very beautiful, very cold, and very, very remote and untouched environments. But generally, this is something that also I never told anybody. The moment that in the Camp 4 we woke up and we decided to get ready, I looked at Everest. It was at night, and I said, allow me to climb, but make me a better person if I come back alive. Teach me something in that environment. And I did mention that to Everest. Like, I'm not a very religious person. I would have told you to gods, but I looked at Everest. It's very beautiful. You can have a really nice view of it. And I said, allow me to climb you. And I was really afraid. But if I survive, teach me something coming out of it. And I think the main lesson that I got, the spiritual lesson, is just live in the moment. Life is too short. Enjoy, be grateful with what you have. You have no idea, Kim, that like you go outside, the sun shining on your face, and I was just desperate for that for days. Like, I just want some heat on my skin. Like, it's so cold and everything over there, or just a cup of water or glass of beer next to the water. I was just dreaming about all of those stuff, or a laugh with group of friends. Like, I missed my friends and family a lot up there. And I thought to myself that, just appreciate, be grateful of what you have, very small moments that you have around. This is very important. And I hope that I can take that with me. Just be grateful of life, the experiences that you have, how bad you might think they are. It's still just, you have to be so happy that you're actually experiencing these things.
Yeah, so beautifully said. What was it like to watch that sunrise from that location?
Oh, amazing. It was amazing. Like I actually, just to make an announcement, I'm going to make a slideshow next week for all the community members. I'm going to obviously I'll open it up to the public. Anyone wants to come. Pictures, I'm going to show you the dead body picture, the videos they took and everything. The sunrise was amazing. Like, that you are the highest person in the world. Like, literally, I was the highest person in the world. It was amazing. But it was also with a mixture of cold and fear as well. So I wasn't enjoying it as much as I should have, because I was also cold and a little bit scared, especially when you're on the top. It's amazing, but I had the anxiety of going down that route as well. So, yeah. But it's a very nice experience. No words can really explain that.
Were you able to see the curvature of Earth from that location or perspective?
No, I didn't. I didn't pay attention to that.
I wasn't sure that would even be available.
Can you do that? I didn't know that you can actually do that.
Well, I just remember seeing a very subtle, slight curvature of the Earth at the top of the World Trade Towers when I was little. And it was the first time, they talk about the NASA astronauts that when they looked back at our planet, they had this kind of like enlightenment experience. And for me, being, whatever I was, 12 years old at the time, it was when the roof of the Twin Towers was open back in the day, after it had been first built. You were allowed to go to the observation deck, which was outside. And I saw it was very slight, but that subtle, curvature of the planet. And it just knocked me out and had me really see us as a planet, a circular planet. So I was just curious if that was available at that height up there.
No, unfortunately it wasn't. But it seems to me that you should go up there. You should go to climb Everest. You would probably enjoy it a lot.
No way. I'm lucky I could do Mauna Kea here with some spiked brownies to handle the altitude sickness. My friends, when I was up there, I was so shocked at how disorientating it can be. And I don't know when you were here. I know you've gone to the top of Mauna Kea. Did you go to Lake Va'au, that sacred lake that's at the top of Mauna Kea? It's up a little higher than the observatories. Was that something you did when you were here?
No, I didn't, unfortunately, but that's a good excuse to do it again.
Yeah, exactly. But you have to walk you can only drive so far and you have to do the walk to this sacred lake. And it, like you spoke to, obviously, you're 7,000 feet higher. But I just remember having to put one foot in front of the other so slowly to get to it because we didn't have oxygen masks, obviously, up there, but it was just so daunting. And this feeling, I felt like drunk. Oh, that was the disorientation I felt. I'm curious, what was yours like? Did it feel like a cognitively compromised experience for you?
Sorry, I didn't get the question. The experience of the Everest?
Yes, at that altitude, I was just curious if you found a cognitive decline in your, abilities.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think that is very normal. Like, as I mentioned, that you feel a little sleepy up there. You just really, everything is coming down because of the lack of oxygen. Because the oxygen that you're using also doesn't bring you down to the sea level. It just helps you a little bit. Like instead of like 29,000 feet, you are like in 26,000 feet or 25,000 feet. Is enough for you not to die. But here's the thing about the Everest. What I loved about Everest is it's a place that people pushed about. If you follow the news, you read really amazing things. It's a place that humanity pushes the boundary of, things that you're capable of doing that. The oldest man who ever climbed Everest is an 80-year-old person, like a Japanese 80-year-old, like 80.
Wow.
And then the
Wow.
woman, Watanabe is the oldest woman to summit Everest at
How old was
73.
she?
73.
73. Wow.
So you have to go to that environment to see how crazy that environment is. When you see an 80-year-old person or 73-year-old person climbing that Everest, it means that you are capable of doing things. You are absolutely capable of doing crazy things if you put your mind up there. I saw this year there was the Nepali person who was he didn't have any legs. I don't know what they called him. There was no legs. I think he was paralyzed.
Okay.
And yeah, so he was climbing it, and then he had these small, the metallic kind of foods. I don't know what they call them. That there's some things that they. So instead of his legs, he had these manufactured metal prosthetics. Yes, exactly. That was the word I was looking for. And then he was climbing with that, and he had this, crampons on the bottom of those prosthetics, and I was unbelievable that this guy was essentially crawling up the mountain. And that person was proving that even the physical disability shouldn't stop you from achieving your goals. And that guy did it successfully, came down, and I saw him personally during the Camp 3 to Camp 4, and I was just blown away. So if you put your mind in there, you will achieve it. Like trading, for example, I know a lot of people are in this call are traders. If you put your mind on it, you're going to achieve it. You may not achieve it the way that you want it, but if you are really resilient in there, you can make it. Like humanity is showing you that everything is possible if you do it right with the proper support and just are resilient enough to survive the process.
You guys are all listening to Andrew Aziz. He is the founder of Bear Bull Traders. He has an incredible community. He's also the author of the book, How to Day Trade for a Living, a very simple, concise, and practical guide to day trading, written really for everyone, regardless of your financial market knowledge. I've read it and was so impressed with how jargon-free it is. I loved all your books, Andrew. In your formal bio, you talk about your lifelong care with nature, and whether you're trading or in front of a computer, you're trying to always get outdoors. And your formal bio used to say that we should ask you about breathing at 20,000 feet. So now we have to ask you, what was it like to breathe at 29,000 feet?
Actually, I like that. Thanks for reminding that. I have to update that bio because
right.
that time that when I wrote that bio, 22,000 feet was the highest one. But now it's actually a good time. Very good. Thank you so much for reminding me that. It was hard. It's hard. Really, like breathing is something that we do it like probably thousands of times during the day, and we don't appreciate that. Going to the high elevation, you don't need to even go to the Everest itself. Go to the base camp of Everest, and you see Every step matters. Every breath is becoming difficult. So again, go back to the gratefulness and, being grateful about everything that you have in life. And from the moment that you land in Nepal is a very poor country. You realize that we living in, first world, in the West, we are so, privileged, and from every small things. And then obviously you go up and, the Mount Everest, all the privileges of life is gone. Slowly they take it away from you. The, cold and lack of oxygen and exhaustion and everything. So you become very grateful after this journey.
Beautiful. If you guys are enjoying this conversation, please be sure to follow Andrew on Twitter, and please tweet out that you are enjoying this conversation so more listeners can come in, whether they are traders or people who are just into challenging themselves. My name is Kim Ann Curtin, the Wall Street Coach. I have the only trading Discord room dedicated to mindset at TraderHeroJourney.com. One of the questions I had for you, Andrew, and let me again remind you, if you guys want to ask Andrew a question, please put your request forward and I'll give you the microphone. One of the questions I had was just about the dynamic with the Sherpa that helped you get to the top. Could you just talk about what the experience and relationship entailed?
Yeah, so my Sherpa was a very experienced Sherpa who'd been up to Everest 12 times. So it means that essentially 12 years, 13 years, he's gone up every year. He didn't have a lot of, he didn't speak a lot of English. Yeah, I really didn't need to talk with him a lot. He knew the route and he was always walking behind me unless we really needed to make a very difficult, pass or the very difficult move that he was coming in front. I was always connected to him when he came to the front, and he was supporting me in my move. He did help me in the carry of some of the oxygen and some of the material. So it's very important. Without him, it would have been pretty much impossible or very, very difficult because, for the summit, you have to carry 4 bottles of oxygen because you ran out of the oxygen. But more than anything else is he was always taking care of me, looking at me without even talking. Essentially in the last 12 hours, you really don't talk because of the oxygen mask. But knowing that somebody is looking over your shoulder is giving you that peace of mind that somebody is looking at me. But unfortunately, he wasn't speaking a lot of English, and that was, something very interesting that I can climb Mount Everest with someone who doesn't speak even my language very well.
Yeah, but the communication that was operating even in spite of that language barrier sounds like it was incredibly more powerful than words could have done anyway.
Yeah, there is a book called Alchemist. I don't know if some of you might have read that. There is talking about the universal language of, that everybody speaks that. Like sometimes just by looking at other people, you can read a story. Like you don't need to really talk the same language to understand the fear, frustration, hope, or danger, or this kind of things. And my relationship with my Sherpa was essentially like that he was reading me, my behavior, without really speaking. And that's very beautiful. Like that's a connection that you have also with nature. You don't need to speak the language of nature to talk to Everest. Like I told you in the morning, I asked Everest to allow me to climb, but teach me something, because you're different. You're different from the mountains that I climb everywhere else in the world. Those are fun. You go there, you take pictures, you take selfie. This is different. You have to teach me something if I climb you.
Yes. What do you think surprised you the most of the entire experience? What was so unexpected?
I wasn't really expecting myself to be fearful of death that easily. And I was also surprised with how I handled accepting death. And I said, okay, I'm going to die. Let's go up and let's see where we actually fall. Like that was very surprising, that experience of near death and accepting death. I think I was surprised by that.
Yeah, very profound. I can appreciate how stunning that must have been to face it. And I think it's sort of, I'll just share just a little bit there was a mistaken incoming missile text that got sent to all the residents of Hawaii a few years ago. And it specifically said, this is not a drill. And I can remember that was the first time. I mean, I've had a couple of near misses in surfing and in whitewater rafting where I thought I might die. But this moment where I was, not actively engaged with something and thought, wow, this is it. And that you can't replicate that for yourself, but it forces you to really face death and face the shortness that life really is. And it was a profound experience for me. I feel so fortunate that I got to have that experience because it made me really appreciate the value of life and how precious it is and how short it is and how at any moment it could be taken from any of us. Those moments force us to just really see like this is it, not a dress rehearsal, so to speak. So I'm just curious, Andrew, what and how do you see that reconciling that you had affecting you personally, and then of course as a trader, especially with what Paris spoke to about your adventureness and courage as a trader already? What do you think this might do for you?
I think the gratefulness that you mentioned in the personally, I reiterate that one. For trading wise, I think accepting the power of the most powerful things that you're dealing with, the market. Like in the mountain, look at the mountain, and I realized that my death and life in Everest is not under my control. It's under the condition that is happening. Like one avalanche can take you down. Like we were climbing up, and then there was a big rock fell down, and it was very close to hit us. And we couldn't do anything. Like if that one hit, it would have hit me, I would have been dead, and it was out of my control. So in trading, when you're trading, you have to accept that the market is very powerful. You cannot control market, and it's something beyond your control. That is good. That doesn't mean that you cannot do your best, but have to accept that it's not your fault if it doesn't work. It's just the nature of the market. And it seems very simple, but it's very hard for people to understand. Like I myself, had some very bad losses just because I just didn't want to accept that the market is right and I'm wrong. Like it's very important to accept that the market is a very powerful force, and you are there to cruise around like a climber who goes up the mountain, then tries to go up, down safely. You try to cruise around this powerful force, but you have no control and you cannot change the environment of trading.
Yeah, beautiful. We'll probably wrap this up in a few minutes. Does anybody have any questions? Please just raise your hand so I can give you the microphone. This is a conversation about Andrew's journey to the top of Mount Everest, and I wanted to hear more of the details. Is there any question I didn't ask you about that experience that I should ask you, Andrew?
I don't know. I mean, I can't really think of anything, but I am going to give a slideshow and I'm going to go through all the, logistics and journey and, how the more in depth of the process with pictures and videos. And I, would love you to come and everybody into the presentation. And if you have any question over there, I'm happy to answer. And that I still process the experience. It was like, it was less than 10 days ago, like 12 days ago, less than 2 weeks ago, I was there and I still process the experience. But I think at the end, if I can become a person who's more grateful for what I have and what the universe is giving me, and just live in the moment, more live in the moment. Life is way too short, and just enjoy every moment with your parents, with your kid. My mom is here, so every night I'm just going hug her for hours, and because I know that it's just I might not have her in the moment, like the experience that you had with the missile drill. Yeah, just live in the moment, enjoy every moment, and the universe is allowing you to experience these amazing moments and just enjoy it. I think that these are the things that I hope that it stays with me.
What was I can't imagine as a mother what that must have been like for her, knowing you were going through that. How did she respond when you first first reached out to tell her you were okay and had succeeded?
Well, my mom actually was the person who she was actually encouraging me to go. And,
Really?
usually, yeah, I mean, usually the moms would say, oh, my younger brother, Ali, you met, he was telling me that it's not worth it, man. Life is beautiful. Come down in the middle of expedition. He was texting me. But my mom was telling me, no, go after your dream. If you enjoy it, you love it, go
Wow.
after dream. And I was really
Wow.
surprised on that. And she sent a lot of prayers, I'm sure, but she was always encouraging me. I always joked with her that, Mom, you wouldn't mind I die and then you get all the money, and we just laugh
Oh, Andrew, that's amazing. How did Artie respond? How beautiful that he wanted to just, you know, he probably, I'm sure, like to look, your mom is older, right? So she has lived her life, and I think as anybody ages, you have regrets of the chances bite
Yeah,
into.
so I think
And I suspect that's part of why she encouraged you.
I think so. I think she does believe that every person has to go through their journey. You do what you gotta do, and I think my mom is just, yeah. She knew that if I needed to do this, and I have to do it, and probably no one would be more sadder than my mom
Of
if
course.
anything happened to me. But I have seen this before in the past. Like I had a friend who died in climbing, in Canada, and then we went to the celebration of life event of that person, and then their parents came and then they say, we're happy at least she died while she had she was enjoying what she loved. And they actually said that to us and all of our friends, and then keep doing what you love, don't let
Yeah.
these incidents stop you from doing what you love. And it was amazing for me to hear that from a parent who just lost a very beautiful young girl. And that they say, yeah, I mean, you do what you got to do what you love to do, don't let these kind of things stop you.
Yeah. But also, I appreciate that you received both, right? From your mom, the encouragement to move forward, but from your brother, they're like, what are you doing this for? Just come back to us and be safe. So, how beautiful to there's different kind of benefits to both of those messages, Andrew.
Yeah, it's indeed, yes.
It's beautiful. All right, just one last time, see if anybody has any questions. I see Sam. I know you're here. I don't know if you have any, but if anybody does have any questions, please just raise your hand so I can give you the microphone. But if not, Andrew, we will all be keeping an eye out for when this presentation and your willingness to share some of the photographs you have from the event with us. I can't wait to see those. I was following your adventure the whole time myself. I have to be honest with you, there was a part of me that thought, not because of you, because I can tell you have that determination and perseverance, but hearing about the rope being broken up on that mountain, and because of just how hard it is to navigate up there, I thought the elements would not perhaps allow you to get there. And I just can't tell you, the moment when you were like, we're on our way, that's when I started to definitely pray for you and your safety. Not that I wasn't before, but I was like, holy shit, it's going to happen. The rope was fixed. I was like, oh my goodness. So it was an exhilarating experience for me on the outside. And I started to cry when you posted that picture saying you had done it. And it was just, I think, just the power of how each person's journey can impact and be that strong hand that pulls people forward through whatever their challenges are. And that's the power of community, even community that we may not even know somebody, but their story inspires us. It's a beautiful thing. So I hope you really appreciate, Andrew, how many people you'll never even meet that you inspired through that, adventure.
Thank you. I'm so happy to really hear that, and I hope that I can continue to inspire people around me. And yeah, I appreciate that.
All right. Well, it doesn't look like we have any other questions, so we'll bring it to a close. Please take a look at Andrew's. He is the founder of Bearable Traders. Please make sure you're following him on Twitter. This is a Twitter space. I usually do a podcast and a Twitter space, but I just was dying to hear some of the details of Andrew's adventure. So this is just a Twitter space. We'll probably release it on the podcast too. It is being recorded, fortunately. I'm looking forward to that presentation, Andrew. Thank you, everybody, for participating. Paris, for your question. And Andrew, I wish you a beautiful couple of weeks that you get to still rest and recover and enjoy the celebration of your incredible adventure. I'm just glad you're here back with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and looking forward to the slideshow presentation that I'm going to give next week.
Beautiful.
Have a good day.
All right. You too. Have a great weekend, everybody, and thanks for being here. Aloha.
This has been the Wall Street Coach Podcast with Kim Ann Curtin. You can find out more about her and her team online at thewallstreetcoach.com. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes. Thank you for listening.